Very nice.
older, that's all.
Aren't we all?
Yes.
And it's, of course, it's cold.
It's not too bad.
I had a nice ride with a young man.
have the hitchhike. We're supposed to very often. How you doing? Just started.
right, I want to welcome everybody here for our Northampton Veterans Day Parade ceremonies. As like every year, it's not raining, it's breezy, and it's chilly in the front of this building, so we are true to form. I would just like to start by welcoming the folks that are sitting behind me. We have, of course, our Honorable Mayor Claire Higgins, the President of the of the City Council, not Veterans, James Dostal was unable to attend this morning. He had a funeral to attend, so he sends his regrets. We also have with us at-large Councilor Michael Bardsley, Maureen Carney from Ward 1, from Ward 3, Robert Reckman, from Ward 4, we've got David Narkowitz, Ward 5, we have David Murphy, thank goodness, because he brought the sound system. From Ward 6, we got Marianne Labarge. From Ward 7, we've got Raymond W. Labarge. We also have in attendance from the Forbes Library, Jesse Adams. And we're also honored to have Judge Michael Ryan here, who's going to be our guest speaker. I also would like to thank the Gold Star mother, Joan Johnson, and her companion, the past Veteran of the Year, James Doyle. I also have the President of the Veterans Council with us, Jerry Clark, and a couple of the members of our Veteran of the Year. This year we honored Korean War era veterans. I see some of them are out in the crowd who didn't want to be in the parade per se, and probably didn't want a lot of attention, but I'm really glad that they've come. We've got two of them to sit up here with us, Mr. James Connor and Erwin Brady. Mr. Erwin Brady was over in Korea during the war, and he's one of our honorees from our breakfast on Friday morning, where they were able to hear and listen to speeches a lot warmer than we are today. So that's why we now have our Veteran of the Year breakfast, and everybody's welcome to come next year. It's warmer, you get full, and you get to hear a whole lot more talking and less of me. All right, I would like to begin by asking Sergeant Peter Duffy of the Marines to start us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I'd like to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Peter. Peter's also on my staff and has helped a lot with the whole event this week. I would now like to introduce to you, and I don't know if you'd like to just say a couple of quick words, but Reverend Rudy Beyer to do our invocation.
Let us pray. We commend to your gracious care and keeping all the men and women of our armed forces, present and past, at home and abroad. Defend them day by day with your heavenly grace. Strengthen them in their trials. Give them courage to face any perils that surround them. Grant them a sense of your abiding presence wherever they may be. Amen.
Amen. Now I would like to call up, usually people who go to the ceremony have seen a gentleman that sang for us many times in a row. He unfortunately couldn't attend today. He was in Philadelphia for some engagement. And I ended up finding, not very far from home, someone at Northampton High School, one of our own, to sing the national anthem for us. So I have the wrong thing. Carly, I can't remember your last name, but Carly, if you come on up. Carlin. Don't sit, Mayor. You're on next. I'd now like to call up the Honorable Mary Claire Higgins, the Mayor of Northampton.
I'll blow away. Good morning, everybody. Can we have another round of applause for Carly Listic, who stepped in and thank you for being here. It's my job to read a proclamation this morning, as I do every Memorial Day, or the mayor does every Memorial Day. Before we do that, though, I just want to take a moment for us to thank the folks who are here from Soldier On for their service to the country. Thank you for serving, and we will work with you to make sure that you're always welcome in our community. Those are the folks who are up at the shelter at the VA. We want them to feel like members of our community. Welcome home and welcome back to the city of Northampton. Can we give them a round of applause? Veterans Day, November 2008. Whereas since the time of the American Revolution, the citizens of Northampton have never failed to answer their country's call and have proudly served in our armed forces in all conflicts from then to the present, and it is fitting to honor a specific group of those men and women for their courage, dedication, and sacrifice. And whereas during the Korean War era from June 25th, 1950 to January 31st, 1955, over 700 of our citizens served in our armed forces, 7 of whom were never to return. And whereas Korea is the forgotten war to some, but not to us, and lives in our minds and hearts, as does the memory of all our wars, as evidenced by our memorial hall and its monuments. And whereas over 100 of those veterans still live in our city and continue to contribute to the welfare of our community and serve as model citizens, neighbors, and friends. And whereas the Veteran Services Office of the City of Northampton, Massachusetts would like to honor the veterans of the Korean War in Northampton, Leeds, and Florence, who are so richly deserving of our recognition. Therefore, I, Mary Claire Higgins, Mayor of the City of Northampton, do hereby proclaim that this Veterans Day, the 11th day of November 2008, be set aside to honor the Korean War era veterans of Northampton, Florence, and Leeds for their selfless service to our country, in witness whereof I have set my hand and affixed the seal of the City of Northampton. Thank you to those Korean War vets that are here and all the Korean War vets in the community that gave to our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's my honor now to introduce Judge Michael Ryan from our own community, who just recently has retired. He has graciously volunteered to say a few words for us today.
Madam Mayor, distinguished citizens of Northampton, and honored guests. The theme chosen for today's commemoration, the Korean War service of our nation's veterans, is both long overdue and timely. Long overdue because just as the Korean War is labeled the forgotten war, the men and women who served there are our forgotten veterans. And it is timely because the 6 million who wore the uniform during that period of time are fast approaching the shade. They're dying at an average rate of 1,000 a day. And if we do not seek out and record their stories, the memory of their heroism, courage, endurance, and sacrifice will be forever lost. And we, as a nation and people, need those stories, not just for our national pride. Those citizens of all political philosophies can justly and openly be proud of their unselfish gallantry, not only for inspiration, though their devotion to cause and country summons from us all an admiration that moves and motivates, and not simply to fill the near-empty bin of knowledge about this disregarded chapter of military history on that ignored peninsula in a forgotten era for an unremembered reasons. We, as a nation, need those stories because the Korean War is the bedrock of the second half of the 20th century. It is the cause, the beginning, and the explanation of the Cold War. Throughout World War II, the United States and Russia were allies. In 1950, in Korea, they grabbed each other by the throat and squeezed mightily, relentlessly, and ruthlessly for 40 years until the American free enterprise system bankrupted the Soviet Union's controlled economy. Every Korean War veteran knows why that struggle was so intense, insistent, and important. And that's why we, as a nation, need their stories. On a deeper and more personal level, we as a people need the stories of our Korean War veterans, because from the intense experience comes great wisdom, and their sharing will make us a wiser people. There should be no mistake. The Korean War was the most horrific in our history. The enemy we faced was devoid of compassion, caution, or concern for civilians, and fanatical with malice and hatred of us. The climate was severe, the terrain was treacherous. War is hell, we have heard countless times, but in Korea, hell froze over. Our soldiers and Marines fought in sub-zero weather, sometimes withstanding temperatures of 30 or 40 below. It was called Chosen, the poet wrote, that frozen place in Havelote, I'd say, by God's own race. But there we were at 40 below, with frozen ear and frozen toe, with weapon frozen to the hand, then forced to fight for this bitter land, outnumbered there by devil's brood, fighting to death and fighting cruel. We did not bleed, for our blood was frozen. There on the battleground, we called Chosen. A ragtag lot, half frozen men, half able but willing to fight again. The names and terms are vaguely familiar, maybe from 8th grade history class or old Glenn Ford movies. Indian River, Incheon Landing, Operation Thunderbolt, Operation Donut, the Battle for Pork Chop Hill, the Battle of Old Brady, the Battle of Bloody Ridge, the Battle of Heartbreak Ridge, Operation Cleanup, Operation Clamor, Operation Shutdown, the Yalu River, the 38th parallel. Names, some geographic, some strategic, some folksy, some hopeful, some so sad we tear without a reason. But each has a deeper meaning. Each has 100 stories of valor and heroism and honor and loss and the savagery of battle that only our veterans know. Here is the overall story. Russia stayed out of the war in the Pacific until the USA dropped the bombs that assured the surrender of Japan. Then Stalin declared war on the defeated Japanese and moved his army into the Korean Peninsula, down to the 38th parallel, where they were stopped by the United States Army. Essentially, the great powers divided the peninsula into North and South Korea. The Russian and the Chinese communists armed, trained, and incited their North Korean allies for 5 years. And on June 25th, 1950, the Koreans invaded the South. They captured the city of Seoul. They held the capital for 3 months until the United Nations forces, led by the United States, liberated it at the end of September. During the period of occupation, the North Koreans executed and conscripted nearly 100,000 South Koreans. The war lasted 3 years. It appeared to be over in 6 months, and the U.S. Marines and our international allies and our army had pushed the North Koreans past the Yalu River. But they were suddenly surrounded by 300,000 communist troops and forced to fight their way back to the coast at immense human cost. For the next 2.5 years, the campaign sometimes was trench warfare and sometimes battles over hills so insignificant they had numbers instead of names. Armies moved back and forth over the 38th parallel until that boundary became a barren no-man land, as it is today. It was the most brutal of wars. The rules of the Geneva Convention were ignored by North Korean and their Chinese allies. There was no mercy or quarter given. Captured Americans were routinely butchered, and the slaughtered were more fortunate than the few taken prisoners, who were death-marked, tortured, starved, enslaved in labor camps, and often summarily executed without charge, cause, reason, or explanation. The numbers are nauseating. The United States suffered 33,741 casualties, 92,000 plus wounded, 5,000 missing. Of the 7,245 prisoners of war, 2,847 died in captivity. It is believed that several hundred prisoners were never returned. This is the gist of our veteran stories. To get the gristle, you need to ask them. The stories will not come easily, but they are essential to our collective wisdom. Only those who have known the horrors of war can sufficiently appreciate and pass on to us the importance of peace. Today, Korea is divided still at the 38th parallel, and the South is our staunch and tested ally. It is a thriving country with a gross domestic product of 1.2 trillion. The North's GDP is comparatively 40 billion. The per capita income of South Korea is $25,000. In the North, it is $1,800. More importantly, South Korea is a viable democracy of free, productive, healthy, and prosperous people, while their neighbors to the North are impoverished, hungry, oppressed, and despairing people without hope or prospect. These features of economic, political, and cultural wealth and well-being are validation and vindication of the service of our Korean War veterans. That their victory was purchased at so high a price makes their triumph all the more precious. They are deserving of our attention, our gratitude, and our highest honors. As our President-elect said in his announcement for the presidency, let us honor their valor by providing them the care they need. In the city of Springfield, Illinois, around the corner from the Abraham Lincoln Museum, a National Korean War Museum is being built to gather, preserve, present, and praise the stories of our Korean War veterans. And I can think of no better way to express our gratitude to these American heroes than to open our wallet and checkbooks and support that venture. You may visit the website in order to get the address. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to express the City of Northampton's appreciation to our Korean War veterans and to honor all men and women who have worn the uniform.
Thank you very much. I would like to bring up now a member of the Northampton Veterans Council. He is also a member of the Pearl Harbor attack veterans. Augie every year graces us with his poem. And Augie is a World War II veteran, obviously Pearl Harbor. I just want to make sure you all focused on that. Augie, would you please come up? He's going to recite "Freedom Isn't Free."
Freedom is not free. I watched the flag pass by one day. It fluttered in the breeze. A young Marine saluted it, and then he stood at ease. I looked at him in uniform, so tall, so proud, hair cut short, eyes alert, he'd stand out in any crowd. I wondered how many men had fallen through the years, how many died on foreign soil, how many mothers' tears, how many fighter planes shot down, how many died at sea, how many foxholes were soldiers' graves. No, freedom isn't free. I listened to the taps one night when everything was still. I listened to the bugler play, and I felt a sudden chill. I wondered how many times the taps had meant amen when our flag had draped the coffin of a brother or a friend. I thought about the graveyard at the bottom of the sea and unmarked graves in Arlington. No, freedom is not free, and it's very costly. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Augie. Probably better with the microphone off for me, but all right. I would also now like to have a musical selection played by Andy Phillips from the 9th Mass Battery.
Good morning. Our musical selection is one of the great hits of the Civil War. It's entitled "Just Before the Battle, Mother." So that you can appreciate the song, I will quickly read you the words. Just before the battle, mother, I'm thinking most of you. while upon the field we're watching with the enemy in view. Comrades brave around me lying, filled with thoughts of home and God, for well they know that on the morrow some will sleep beneath the sod. Hark, I hear the bugle sounding, 'tis the signal for the fight. Now may God protect us, Mother, as he ever does the right. Hear the battle cry of freedom, how it swells upon the air. Oh yes, we'll rally around the standard, or we'll perish nobly there. Annie?
Thank you very much. Is the 10th Mass ready? It's my pleasure now to introduce Carly back up here with singing of America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious sky, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on me, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
That's excellent, Carly. Thank you very much. Again, Northampton owned Carly Lister. I'm bad with last names. I don't even remember my own sometimes. I would now like to ask Deb Coombs and the Northampton High School Band to honor us with a musical selection. would like to say a big thank you and appreciation out to Norbert Bricky, who did a lot of work to make this all happen, as well as our Veteran of the Year breakfast. My staff, Jeff Brown, Jason Hartung, Michael Moreau, Joseph Moss, and Peter Duffy, who you saw doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I would also like to thank Deb Kuhn and the Northampton High School Band. Special thank you to the ROTC Color Guard, who have been braving the chill all day to come to our parade. Andy Phillips, and our bugler, the 9th Mass and 10th Mass Volunteer Unit, and Reverend Rudy Beyer for being here. Everyone up in the dais. Oh yeah, I almost forgot Becky. None of this would happen without my assistant Rebecca Bove. I just would like to say just a quick word. In 2005, my first Veterans Day, I mentioned that there was, it's not my habit to promote companies or corporations, but I had mentioned that Sears had a program for anybody who had been called to active duty and who had to serve. A lot of cities and towns, and this city especially, makes up the difference between what happens when somebody goes overseas. They don't have health insurance, or families that are left behind don't always have things. There's a differential in pay for a lot of them when they've been called to duty. And like Northampton, many cities have made up that difference. I just would like to read a little quick thing that I got because we were all asking if it was still going on. And here's the report. How does Sears treat their employees who are called up for military duty? By law, they are required to hold their jobs open and available, but nothing more. Usually, people take a big pay cut and lose benefits as a result of being called up. Sears is voluntarily paying the difference in salaries and maintaining all benefits, including medical insurance, bonus programs for all called-up reservist employees for up to 2 years. I submit that Sears is an exemplary corporate citizen and should be recognized for its contribution. I suggest that we all shop at Sears and be sure to find a manager and tell them why we are there, so the company gets the positive reinforcement it deserves. So when you're out Christmas shopping, if you just go buy one thing at Sears and tell them thank you for supporting it. And this has been a long war, and they haven't changed their policy yet. So it's one of the few times you can be really proud of a corporation. With that said, I would like to call up, and if you would just say 2 words about, or 2 seconds about his history, I would like to call back up for the benediction. All right, can you tell I've been Reverend Rudy Beyer? Thank you.
I don't know my history. I am a chaplain, retired from the Air Force, Air National Guard in Dann. We close with the word, grant us, dear God, in all our duties your help, in all our uncertainties your guidance, in all our dangers your protection, and in all our sorrows your peace. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for coming. I know we're always on the shady side of the street, but this is where the building was built, and this is where we have the ceremony, so we all have to live with it. Thank you all very much for coming, and stay warm.